In the last stream, we took quite the detour away from the main progression of the quest book to set up and upgrade our environmental controller, which is currently set in the middle of our platform, just beneath our main walkway, right there. And at the end of the last episode, we fitted that with two modules, which we can see in the bottom right corner of the screen. We have the Speed Plus module and the Saturation module, allowing us to be auto-fed all of the time. You'll see our saturation is permanently filled, and the Speed 2 module gives us Speed 3, I believe, over here at the top, and we now move much faster than we did at the end of the last episode, which going forward is just going to make it so much easier for us to get around the base and improve our factory. Speaking of which, the plan for today's stream is going to be to finally build some of these multi-block structures here from immersive engineering to allow us to start looking at making these PCBs. And of course, at some point, we're also going to look at automating the production of these PCBs, which is going to be much easier to do once we complete this final quest here. Because once we have the assembly platforms and all of the associated IO units and controllers, that is going to make it real easy for us to automate the PCBs. The initial setup that we're going to have to use is going to be much more convoluted, but once we get there, it should be fairly easy to automate. So there are a couple of quests here that we can work on, but the first thing that we should probably do is make at least one of each of the heavy, light, and redstone engineering blocks. Between streams, I did make some more iron rods, I made some more copper wires. I do think at some point today we are going to have to make a few more alternators. We made one at the beginning of the last episode. That is what allows us to turn our create energy into forge power, which we are going to need for every single one of our immersive engineering machines, and so I've kind of prepared to make a few more of those going forward. We are also going to need a staggering amount of steel, actually, if we want to make all of these machines, because if we look in the engineer's manual, by default, you want to go to heavy machinery. This is where most of the machines that we're going to make today are. We're going to make potentially the crusher, although that's not necessary. We are going to need the automated workbench. We're going to need a squeezer, a fermenter, a mixer, a refinery, and the arc furnace. And the arc furnace especially is a very expensive 5x5x5 multi-block structure. It alone requires 14 steel sheet metal slabs, as well as 10 light engineering blocks, 5 steel scaffolding, 5 heavy engineering blocks, 6 full blocks of steel, and 8 steel sheet metal. So there's a lot of steel required for that arc furnace, and then of course for all of the other machines that we're going to make as well. Right now we have 10 blocks of steel in here, and we've got 148 extra steel in the system. But I do think that probably the very first thing that we should do here today is upgrade our blast furnace to allow us to make steel even faster. To do that, all we need to do is get 27 steel, turn that 27 steel into 27 steel plates, and then craft those 27 steel plates with our blast brick here. That's going to upgrade our regular blast brick to reinforced blast brick, at which point we can then place down basically the exact same multi-block structure, but the added benefit is going to be that we can automate the sending of iron, and more crucially for us right now, we can automate the extraction of slag from that furnace to allow the steel production to be essentially never-ending. It's just going to keep going, and it's going to keep using our iron, which is fine because, of course, we did also upgrade our iron production down here, and so now we're making iron, or at least capable of making iron, much faster than everything else, so we should be good to basically turn all that iron into steel and still have enough iron to keep all of our other systems running. So boom, boom, and boom. One slight change here is that you do need a hopper in order for this to work, and so let me quickly craft one of those, and then over here we can put down the exact same multi-block that we just had, so a 3x3 that is also by 3 with a hopper right on top like so, and then if we right click this on the front with the engineer's hammer, we have a new and improved and more slender blast furnace. And so this one here can receive items from the top, so we can pump into the top of this. We can pump in both the coal coke and the iron. It can eject the steel to the front, and we will go ahead and throw a storage drawer down on the front for that steel, and it can also eject the slag automatically to the back. So let me grab some of that slag from here, and let's drop that into the back. We'll also go ahead and lock that, of course, with our configuration tool. We could also link it with our linking tool. Not that I really think we're going to need this slag going forward. One thing we definitely should do, though, is we should put one of the void upgrades that we made at the end of the last episode into that drawer as well, to make sure that if we do actually fill this up with 2048 slag, that we're not going to stop steel production. It's going to keep going, and it's just going to delete the excess slag. I will go ahead and link this drawer up to our system, because this drawer, of course, is going to be the one that receives steel. Although, much like downstairs, it's probably worth upgrading that drawer to a compacting drawer. That way, we can continue to make steel blocks like we have been doing up until now, but we don't have to worry about crafting those steel blocks down into steel ingots, because, of course, the compacting drawer here is going to do that for us automatically. So let me lock that, and then let me go ahead and just link that to our pre-existing system, and now all of that steel should be available all the time. And then finally, one extra thing we can do if we want is we can go ahead and craft some preheaters. That's these guys right here. These are made with external heaters, fluid pipes, and iron sheet metal. Iron sheet metal, super easy. It's just 4 iron plates, which we have. Of course, we are still running into some slight issues with the integrated dynamic system. Thankfully, we're not too far away from the digital age, which is going to unlock applied energistics for us. And so hopefully those issues will kind of fade away once we pivot over. But for now, we just need some fluid pipes, which are also super easy, just iron plates. And then finally, we need these external heaters. These are a little bit more expensive, 4 copper plates, some LV wire coils. Those are easy enough. We are going to need 6 in total, because we do want 2 of these blast furnace preheaters. We then also need some copper plates, which we don't have because we turned all of our copper plates into copper wire between streams. Thankfully, we can quickly do something like this to get a bunch of copper sheets. I'll take a few and I'll leave the rest going on there so we have some more should we need them, but that should be everything, I think, for 2 of these external heaters, and that should also be everything for these 2 blast furnace preheaters. These go down either side of the blast furnace, so here and here, like that, and these do require power, but if you give them power, they will speed up the improved blast furnace to be even faster than it already is. And so if for now, we grab a stack of iron blocks and we grab another stack of coal coke out of the system, this should already be faster than the previous tier blast furnace. It's still very slow, especially when you're trying to make a full block of steel, but it should be quicker. If we go ahead and provide power to these, you'll see at the top there, they can hold up to 8,000 RF each. That should make this even faster than it already is, which of course is already faster than the regular blast furnace. Alright, so I've thrown down 2 more energy exporters, as well as an item exporter at the top, and we've run that round and connected it up to our pre-existing line of cable. And so over here, we should be able to do something like this to export energy, and something like this to export energy as well. And so now this should be a fair bit faster. However, chat has pointed out that if we look in JEI here, or sorry, should I say EMI here, the recipe for a block of steel here takes 540 seconds, whereas if we look at the recipe for a steel ingot, this only takes 30 seconds. I don't know if this has been changed since we initially set this up, but it looks like it's actually twice as fast to use ingots versus blocks. And you'll see now with the upgraded furnace, using the right ingot instead of using the block, and with the blast furnace preheaters, that this is actually almost reasonably fast. And so the final thing that we need to do here, I guess, is just take our portable logic programmer, quickly get a new list card, I guess, because we're going to use 1 card here to export both iron ingots and coal coke. And ideally, if I go ahead and put that in up here, that should just continually export both iron ingots and coal coke if we go to export items like that, keeping both of these slots filled. Nice. Okay, cool. So that is basically steel fully automated. It's not super fast, but it is way faster than it was previously. Also, I guess at this point in time, we probably also do want to do like this, kind of unlock this, make sure it's empty, let the new steel make its way in, because this steel here is not the same as the other steel. And really, you're not going to craft that steel into blocks for me. That's not possible. Let me try real quick. If I take some of this steel and try and craft this steel into a block, is that doable? It is doable, but it gives you a different block, which is so awkward. And I don't think there's a way, like an easy way for us to make that work. which kind of means then, in that case, this I think does work. I think it will export the steel ingots, but it looks like we might as well just kind of, again, get rid of the compacting drawer and replace down the standard drawer, because it looks like this can only hold regular ingots, because these ingots, for whatever reason, don't or dictionary correctly with the blocks that you can craft them into. Either way, that's fine, and we do now have steel ready to go. Let me link that up. Let me lock that up. Fantastic. And that is basically going to continue doing what it's doing until we fill this drawer up with 2048 steel, at which point the system will just back up, ready for when we need more, which is good. And so now that that is substantially faster, we should be able to finally look at making some of these engineering blocks. So the redstone engineering block, super easy. It requires one of these electronic components that we made a few episodes back with some more iron sheet metal and some redstone. I'm going to go ahead and make a bunch of iron sheet metal here because we are going to need a ton of it. I think a full stack is going to be fine. And then from there, we should be able to make at least one batch of redstone engineering blocks, at least one batch of light engineering blocks, and then for the heavy engineering blocks here, we are just missing some steel sheet metal, which we can also make with steel plates. Again, that should be fine. Let me go ahead and craft this down and also get some steel plates cooking over here. And 64 steel plates later, that should be everything for the steel sheet metal. But then I think we are also probably going to need more of these steel mechanical components. Never mind, we made enough the first time around. That is enough to complete the quest here, which does give us some lead coins, which we can immediately sell for a small bump in revenue. But now, if we want to start making these machines, we are, of course, going to need quite a lot more of these blocks. So initially, I'm going to just start building these machines over on these two platforms, and I'm going to just put them down. We're probably going to end up moving them because we need to figure out like what order these need to be in and kind of the easiest way to set them up. But initially, let's start, I think, with the industrial squeezer here. The industrial squeezer is a fairly small machine. Again, back in the manual, we can go to the squeezer, and if we go ahead and hit stop, we need 2 light engineering blocks, 1 redstone engineering block. We also need 1 piston, which we should be able to make very easily. Let's have a look over here. Do we have any pistons lying around? We do. Perfect. We'll take that out. We also need 6 steel scaffolding, 3 steel fans, 2 fluid pipes, and 4 wooden barrels. And a quick bit of crafting later. None of this was too difficult. The hardest part was crafting some steel rods, which as you can see is incredibly easy. Steel scaffolding, just steel and steel rods, and then steel fence, also just steel and steel rods. And so now back over here, chat is correct that it is not this kind of wooden barrel. That is right. It is the wooden barrel from Immersive Engineering. Thank you, chat, for pointing that out. I need the treated wooden barrel, I'm pretty sure, which is this one right here. So this one is a little bit more expensive, does require some treated wood. Thankfully, we do have a little bit of treated wood in the system, and of course, we can always steal some treated wood from here. And for wooden barrels later, the actual wooden barrel this time, not the incorrect one, we should be ready to build this. So you can use the play and stop buttons over here to cycle through this, and you can also use the up and down arrows. So if you leave it on play, it's going to kind of build automatically. If you switch it to pause, you can then just use the arrow keys. I find this easier to move kind of up and down like this and view the different levels. And then if you hit stop, it will show you the fully assembled machine. And so I probably want the orange bit here. This is the output. I probably want that facing forward like this. It's going to be a little tricky to get it the right way here, but then we can hit the pause button again and we can go down to the bottom level. So for me, I want to build it with that light engineering block in the back corner. So that's going to go up over here like this. We then have the steel scaffolding going down around like this. We have what I believe was just 2 fluid pipes in the bottom like that. And then we can go back in, we can click up again. And the next level here is a redstone engineering block right here, the light engineering block again right here, and our 4 barrels down here, 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 and here. And then finally, the last level is just the piston, which I believe does have to be pointing down, and then the 3 steel fence here, here, and here. And at that point, we should be able to do something potentially like this, because again, you do need to make sure that the piston does face the correct way, like so. And once you're done, I believe you want to right-click with the hammer right here. I don't think it'll work on other sides, like I'm right-clicking here, doesn't work. I'm fairly certain you do have to specifically right-click right here for it to work. And it does. If you're wondering, by the way, it does tell you in the book. It says the structure is built as shown above and formed using the engineer's hammer on the center wooden barrel from the side that has the engineering blocks. So it's a little convoluted, and especially with some of the bigger machines, it can be a little tricky to figure out intuitively where you have to right click, but it does always tell you in the manual where to right click if you are wondering. So now we should be able to use this to start making some hop graphite. The hop graphite is made by putting coke dust into the industrial squeezer. Coke dust we can make in one of two ways. We can either use more of the crushing wheels from Create. We did make our first set of these in the last stream, or we can make the giant industrial crusher from Industrial Foregoing. I think it's going to be easier for us to use the crushing wheels from Create to make the coke dust over the big industrial crusher from Immersive Engineering. And so I think what we'll probably do then is real quick set up a new set of crushing wheels round here to allow us to turn our coal coke into coke dust. We're then going to squeeze that in here. That's going to get us the hop graphite dust. And then from there, we just need to smelt that hop graphite dust into hop graphite ingots. And those hop graphite ingots are what are going to allow us to make the graphite electrodes that we need in order to power the arc furnace. Alright, so not too long later, we have two more crushing wheels. Again, another added benefit here of those over the crusher is that they're super easy to make now that we already have the mechanical crafting wall up and running. It is just one stone in the middle, 4 planks, and then andesite alloy, which we are making for free with our basic mechanism system. Now, we did have to power these, and we also had to power the wall, and so what I have done over here is I have upgraded the boiler. I added another 9 tanks to the top. That made it taller. I don't think we really needed the extra height, but I wanted to add another steam engine to the Isaac frequency. And so now we have 32,000 stress units to play with on this frequency, which is what has allowed us to actually run the new stuff that we have over here. So now this is running. Obviously, we don't need to leave this here permanently. We can turn that off to save on stress units. But over here, the system is basically the exact same that we had before. We've got 2 crushing wheels. To get those running, we have 1 energy transmitter going into a gearbox that powers the 1 crushing wheel. And then over here, we've got a shaft and another gearbox to rotate the shaft in a different direction and allow them to spin together like this. And then over here, we've run another energy exporter over to the top. It does have to go directly into the top of this block here to make the squeezer work. Of course, we'll put a facade down here at some point in a second. So this does have power now. And I'm being told that we can just export directly to the top like this with an item exporter. So let's give that a try. If we say export item, and before we do that, let's actually grab our logic programmer, and let's say that we want you to export coal coke. So if I drag that over here, we should then be able to put that in here. And if that works, we should start to see some coal coke dust appearing in this drawer here. It looks like it is crushing something, I think. Now, the trouble we might run into is that it might be exporting a lot of items here, and that's almost certainly the case. Let me start by changing this to 20 ticks per operation. That's just going to reduce lag a little bit. And then let's also change the item transfer rate to maybe 16. I think that's going to make more sense than trying to export and do a full stack at a time. It totally does work though. I have put a downgrade into this drawer so that we don't turn all of our coal coke immediately into coke dust. But now we should be able to just put another cable here and then do the same thing we've done multiple times before. Grab ourselves, in fact, actually, I think we could use an item pipe here. We could have put down an item interface and an item exporter, but at this point in time, we do have access to the item pipes. And so it actually probably makes way more sense just to do this and this, and that should start to pump that coke dust round into the squeezer, and that squeezer is going to start to use a ton of power to turn that coke dust into hop graphite. It is an 8-to-1, so we do get much less hop graphite dust than we put in coke dust, but this is working, and much like the blast furnace, it will just auto-eject to the front here, I'm fairly certain. It usually does that after it makes a new one, so I think once it makes the 10th here, it's gonna eject. It didn't eject. I really thought this would auto push to the front. Let me go ahead and lock that real quick as well with the configuration tool. And I will put a downgrade in here as well. I get this wrong every time. The squeezer has 2 different outputs. I believe the primary output is like a liquid. We actually just need to move this and put it here. You'll see this is orange and this is orange. This is like the fluid output. I think I need it here. There we go. Now it's starting to auto export all of that hop graphite. Nice, and it's going to keep going until we have 64. Of course, we are probably tearing through our coal coke right now. Yeah, we're down to 1,300. We've still got a fair amount, and we do have a good backlog. More is being produced, of course, but we might have to even further kind of ramp that up going forward if we need loads of this hot graphite dust. Thankfully, I don't think we really should need an endless amount of this, because all we really need to do now is take the hot graphite dust, of course, smelt that into hot graphite ingots, and this is painfully slow. I'll make it a fair bit faster. That can then be used to make the electrodes required for the arc furnace. So the arc furnace requires 3 of these graphite electrodes. These eventually can be made in the engineer's workbench with the engineer's blueprint for arc furnace electrodes, but this requires first $1 million, but most importantly for us, a Tier 4 permit, this one right here, which we can't make just yet because it requires the arc furnace. And so initially, we, I think, are going to have to use the metal press as a way of getting the graphite electrodes. Let me quickly check that there's not another way of doing that. I don't think there is, so I do believe that we have to make the metal press. This makes graphite electrodes that do only have a 50% integrity, so they last half as long. But again, we only have to do this once. Once we have the electrodes, we can make the permit and get the better conversion here that gets us basically double the durability. And at that point, things should be better. So in terms of the metal press here, this requires, again, another redstone engineering block, 1 piston, 1 heavy engineering block, 2 steel scaffolding, and then 2 conveyor belts. Surprisingly, the conveyor belts are probably the hardest part of the equation here because the conveyor belts require leather. Last episode, we did set up a new platform full of passive mobs, and so I think it's highly likely that we'll have a decent number of cows and horses on that platform that we can farm for much easier leather. Alright, so not too much farming later, again using the gold sword because it has looting 2 by default. We have a little bit of leather. We could always go back to get more in the future. We could even look at setting up a little bit of a passive mob farm as well if we wanted to get this coming in automatically, but we do now have what it takes to make the leather here for this conveyor belt, and I think at that point we're basically good to go on everything for the metal press. So over here, the metal press is only a 3 wide multi-block, and I'm probably going to go ahead and embed this in the ground. Now I'm thinking about the fact that we also need other 3 wide machines. It's a little awkward to build it here, but I think I'm going to build it here. Let me put it down like this, and then we need the steel scaffolding because that's going to go down right in the bottom. You don't have to build this in the ground either, but I do think it looks better when it's built in the ground. The steel scaffolding here does require more steel rods. Again, super easy for us to do, and we've got 200 more steel in the time it's taken us to do everything else today, so we are nicely backing up on that steel with our new blast furnace. You'll love to see it. Over here then, in terms of the metal press, we just need steel scaffolding here and here with the redstone engineering block going down like this. We then have conveyor belts going here and here like this, and then if I'm not mistaken, I think the heavy engineering block goes down next with the piston on top. It does not. It's the other way around. So the heavy engineering block goes down at the top, so right about here, and then the piston, again, does need to go down facing down, and of course, we actually need to have a piston as well. And boom, there we go. So now we should just be able to right-click the engineer's hammer on the piston, and we get a metal press. Nice. We can also use the engineer's hammer over here to rotate that to face forward, and we should probably also lock that as well once it gets some more dust in. Cool. That totally works. And then, of course, from there, we do need to get power into the metal press. That goes in, again, at the top like this, and then we can just run this cable around to this cable. We are going to need some more logic cable to make that happen. That's completely fine. In fact, temporarily, we could steal some of this logic cable, which is down for another terminal, which I do want to build over here so we don't have to keep running backwards and forwards. But for now, if we do this and we do another variable card in there, which of course right now we do not have, that should provide power to the metal press, and we should then be able to start using that along with, of course, the rod mold. This guy right here. The rod mold does require the metal press mold blueprint. Thankfully, this one also, by the looks of it, fairly straightforward. We need 1 iron plate, 3 blue dye, and 3 paper. Easy enough. This, as with all of the other blueprints that we've made so far, does need to go over into our engineer's workbench, like this, and now we can make all of these different molds. To make the rod mold, we need 3 steel plates and the engineer's wire cutters. These are just iron and sticks, super easy stuff. Steel plates we have in abundance now, and so back over here, boom and boom, we're gonna go ahead and make the mold. I'm gonna leave these in here as well because I'm fairly certain that not too far from now, we're going to need the metal press plate mold, because that is going to allow us to make these Duraplast sheets inside of the bottling machine. For now, though, over here, let's right-click the rod mold onto the center, and it goes on kind of right there. And then from there, we can just drop our hot graphite onto here, and it should make the electrodes. Now, we do have to drop specifically 4 hot graphite onto there to make 1 electrode, and the arc furnace does need 3 electrodes in order to function. So let's do this. That should work if we give it power, of course, like that. Now, it does look like at this point we are out of power. It's kind of working. That's because it loses power when the squeezer is on, and then it gains power when it's not. We do definitely, though, want to look at making some more of those alternators that I mentioned earlier, so that we don't keep running out of power like that, if we want things to run smoothly. Real quick, though, let me kind of clear my inventory of it, but let me also get more of this hot graphite smelted into hot graphite ingots, and we'll see about making the remaining 3 electrodes, at which point, if we want to make the arc furnace, we need to begin to assemble all of the items that we looked at earlier in the book, which are listed here. So we need steel sheet metal, which we've made before, steel blocks, heavy engineering blocks, light engineering blocks, reinforced blast bricks, so we basically need another full reinforced blast furnace worth of blast bricks, 14 steel sheet metal slabs, 5 steel scaffolding, and a cauldron. Alright, so a little bit of crafting later. I think we have basically everything that we're going to need for the arc furnace. Over here, I've thrown down a chest. This will auto push into a chest if it can. And I've also put down a hopper. The hopper is somewhat useful. For example, if we wanted to make like a steel rod here, the rod cast can do that, and it will make a steel rod like this. The same is true for iron and copper and stuff as well, so it's kind of like the rolling mill that we have over there. But the unfortunate thing is, if you're trying to make anything that requires more than 1 item, the hopper won't work here. You'll see it's not able to put all 4 of these on at the same time, so just bear that in mind. You do have to drop these on like so, if you want to make something like your 3rd graphite electrode. So we'll leave those in there for now, and it's at this point that we need to look at making our arc furnace. And as I mentioned a second ago, the arc furnace is pretty big. It's a 5x5x5 machine. We've got all the stuff to make it. It does say in here that we don't have the blocks of steel. For whatever reason, the blocks of steel just don't show up correctly. We're using the different blocks of steel, not the ones from Immersive Engineering. We're using these ones right here. I've been told by the Twitch chat that they will work, but that they just don't look like they work in the book. And so the question really, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, is whether or not I want to build it kind of right here, or if I want to build it kind of over here. And I think I might build it over here, because we kind of need access to the front of it. So this right here is the center of the platform. And if we pull the book up, again, hit pause and go down to the bottom level, we can kind of just start building this. We need the heavy engineering block at the back center. I'm going to put that right here, not here. And then most of this bottom level is steel scaffolding. We've got a bunch of steel scaffolding going kind of around the backs like that. And then we have one more here and here with our first blocks of steel here and here. And then we've got a bunch of steel sheet metal slabs filling in kind of the rest of the space with steel scaffolding and a cauldron at the front. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm pretty sure the cauldron goes right here, front and center. And then it looked like steel scaffolding was going to go down right there. Do I have that correct? I think I do. Yeah, cool. So this goes here. This goes here. That looks right to me. And then we're going to move it one more level. This is where the redstone engineering block comes in. That's going to go right about there. We then have some more heavy engineering block here, 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 and here, along with the steel blocks again, which don't look right, but I'm very confident will work. Those are going to go here and here. And then we've got light engineering block at the back with some blast brick going down like this. That does come 2 out. The next level of blast brick comes 4 blocks out. So it's like this, but 2, 3, and 4, like that. And then I'm fairly certain the last level actually is just a 3x3 like this. At least the last level of blast brick. Getting a bit ahead of ourselves there. This level has steel scaffolding again here and here. More light engineering blocks down like this. We then have more steel blocks here and here. And then as far as that next level that we're actually at is concerned, we're going to put you here, and then we have the steel scaffolding going down here and here. And that looks almost complete. We also have you here with like a little bit of a pointy bit, and then we've got you here and here. And I think that that's good to go. So in this scenario, I'm pretty sure you right-click on the cauldron with the hammer, and look at that. If you've done it right, it forms the arc furnace. Cool. So this is where we need our electrodes. The very annoying thing about the arc furnace is that you cannot automate the insertion of electrodes. And so it's kind of never fully automatable. You can, using these input slots here, automate the inputting of items. And then at the front, there's also the ability to extract what is made. And also at the back here, there's also the ability to extract what's made. And then we have power input ports on the back, these three right here. But you do have to manually replace the graphite electrodes. Thankfully, eventually, especially once we get the higher tier versions that have 100% integrity, they do last a very long time. And so we shouldn't have to do it all that often. But the arc furnace here is going to be used to make titanium. Titanium is made by placing both rutile dust and hop graphite dust. So we actually do need the hop graphite dust infinitely. And so I guess it's good that we have so much. We could probably do with setting up a system that stops sending it round if there's quite so much in here. But for now, if we take some coke dust, sorry, not coke dust, we need hop graphite dust. Let me take the hop graphite dust. Let's place that over into the arc furnace. And then from there, we just need to combine it with this rutile dust. The rutile dust is something that we can purchase, I believe. So over here, if we go down, we do have the ability to buy rutile. I'll buy a stack. And from there, we can use the hammer to crush it down. That does work. And I'm assuming the crushing wheels would also work. They do. I guess when it comes to automation, because we need to automate titanium, we're probably just going to have to set up potentially another set of crushing wheels here. They also do give us a 25% chance of getting extra rutile. There's also the possibility of something like a crusher or a pulverizer maybe. But initially, I think we do still have some hammer in here. We do indeed. And so if we just do this and this, we can quickly get a stack of rutile dust. And hopefully, if we drop this in, that should start to work, of course, just as soon as we once again export some energy round to the arc furnace. So I'm fairly certain that the arc furnace here is going to require just a staggering amount of power, but I'm hopeful that this will work. So you can make this faster, by the way. You'll see this is working. You can put in more, and by that I mean you can do this. That is going to tank the power even faster because now it's basically trying to do all 6 of these simultaneously, and it does make more simultaneously, but it just uses way more power to do it. It looks like power is actually doing kind of okay if we just have the rutile dust in one slot, and we are getting titanium. Look at that. Nice. And so now we can go ahead and, of course, sell our coins over here. And I believe we can also make the tier 4 trade permit, right? This guy right here, we totally can. We can whack that into the shop. And now we are able to buy anything that requires a tier 4 trade permit, such as the blueprint for the arc furnace electrodes. These are useful, as we saw before, because they double the integrity of the graphite electrodes, but we do also get another purchase here that the pack maker has just reminded me of, these industrial grade graphite electrodes, which are actually unbreakable, so you can put these in and they will last forever. The only problem with these ones, of course, is that they cost $1 billion. And right now, we have got nowhere near $1 billion. We have 12 million. A billion is 1,000 million, and so we are quite a ways away, orders of magnitude away from being able to purchase these industrial-grade graphite electrodes, but they are unbreakable, and so once you get to $3 billion, you can then go ahead and basically fully automate the arc furnace because it will no longer need those electrodes to be replaced. But for now, we have this, which is good, and if we wanted to, we could also get the arc furnace blueprint to increase our electrode durability. We'll probably do that as soon as our first set break. Over here, if we hover over them, you'll see they've gone down ever so slightly, less than 1% to make the full stack of titanium that we've got so far. And so for now, I'm not really too worried about that. The next machine that we're probably going to want to make is the refinery down here, because I think basically next up, as we're working towards these empty PCBs, we need to be able to make these Duroplast sheets and then turn those into these circuit backplanes. So for the circuit backplanes, these are actually made in the engineer's workbench. That is where the auto engineer's workbench comes into play, because that's going to allow us to automatically use the engineer's workbench. And then as for the Duroplast sheets themselves, these require a bottling machine, which we've not really seen up until now, but we can go and bookmark that. And when we click on it, it does tell us what we need to make it. This is where we need that plate mold from earlier that I mentioned. Thankfully, we can just grab that out of here. this guy. We can also use that, of course, in the metal press to make plates if we wanted to, if for whatever reason we didn't want to use the mechanical press right here. And we also need this phenolic resin, which requires creosote, which we are thankfully making, and also, I think, currently backing up on down here. Yeah, we've got 288 buckets of creosote. So for now, at least, we're going to be able to make quite a bit of this phenolic resin. We also then need this acetaldehyde right here. This is made in another refinery, so I think we need 2 refineries. This one combines silver in plate form, which I've been told doesn't get used up, with ethanol. The ethanol, we want the one from Immersive Engineering, is made in a fermenter. That fermenter requires some kind of fruit or vegetable. You know, we can use apples, sugarcane, potatoes, melons, or beetroot. Also, there's a few other items in here like honey as well. But some of those we can just purchase, I believe, from the shop. And some of those we could potentially grow as well automatically using a garden cloche right here. This is going to allow us to automatically grow things. We could just buy sugar and pump it straight in. The same is also true of potatoes. Let me check how good both of those are. If we look at the recipe for the ethanol, the potato gives you 80 millibuckets. The sugarcane also gives you 80, so I guess potatoes would be the preferred purchase choice. For now, we probably will just purchase the potatoes to squeeze them, but going forward, we'll probably look at swapping that out for a garden cloche or some other method of growing the potato automatically so we don't have to spend quite so much money on making the Duroplast. But I guess real quick, let's take a look and see if we can't get all of the items required then to make 2 refineries. So we're going to need 4 light engineering blocks, 4 heavy engineering blocks, 32 iron sheet metal, 2 redstone engineering blocks, 16 steel scaffolding, and 10 fluid pipes. That, honestly, doesn't seem too bad. We already have the 4 light engineering blocks. As for the 4 heavy engineering blocks, that's just going to require some more steel sheet metal, which it looks like we might be able to make if we get like 1 more steel plate. I'll make a few more here just because we can. We've got a ton of steel at this point. Let's have a look again. We are now at 341. You'll love to see it. And so steel sheet metal is done. Can I get more of these? I can. So that's that taken care of. 32 iron sheet metal is also super easy because we have the iron sheets ready to go here. Let me just go ahead and I guess make a stack of those, or really as many as we can. 40 is more than the 32 that we need. Redstone engineering blocks, we need 1 more of those. Thankfully, those are the easiest of the engineering blocks to make. And then 16 steel scaffolding is going to be a couple more of the steel rods. We need 3 lots of the recipe, so 9 would be ideal here. And that should be everything for 18 steel scaffolding, which last I checked is more than 16. And then 10 fluid pipes is also just more iron plates, which we can do over here. Boom and boom. Cool. All right, so we should now have what it takes to make 2 refineries. These are also fairly large machines. These are 3x5 machines, so not quite as big as the arc furnace over there, but still pretty big. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We could kind of squeeze it in here, but it would look pretty awkward. And you know what? I'm going to do it. It's going to be a little awkward, but I'm going to put them down next to each other here because we do need to kind of pipe from one machine into the next. So let's again hit pause. Let's bring this round. Actually, let me hit play because I need to see which is the front. Yeah, I want this output here at the front. And so let's go ahead and again hit stop, hit pause, and we're going to build it this way around. So we're going to have the heavy engineering block at the front. We're going to have the light engineering block at the back with the steel scaffolding and the pipe in the middle. So I want it kind of right here. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like that, and then on this side, we're going to do the same again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's going to be a tight squeeze over here, but I think that's probably fine. I don't think we need the output from that squeezer. We then have our 2 light engineering blocks are going to go down here and here, with the heavy engineering blocks going down on the front here, and then the rest is just steel scaffolding, like this. And then I'm pretty sure there's just giant cubes of iron sheet metal on the top of both of these. I think the next layers here have more of the engineering blocks, and then, yeah, just these big old cubes of iron sheet metal. Thankfully, those don't look particularly difficult. In fact, I think we can probably do all of that basically straight away here. I think we just put these down, and then just start filling in these sheet metal cubes. Like this. And then I think, if I'm not mistaken here, we just right-click on the front center heavy engineering block to finalize that design. Let me grab my hammer, or one of my hammers, and then back over here, if we do this and this, we now have 2 industrial squeezers. And so real quick, let me do the power rigmarole. We're going to get power up to here and to here. All right, so we've got both of these hooked up with energy exporters. I've also finally gone ahead and thrown down another one of these interfaces here so we can actually access all of our stuff from this platform. We don't have to keep flying back over there. And I've also moved the mechanical crafting wall ever so slightly to the left. The reason for that is that we also now need to make the fermenter, which is kind of the sister block to the squeezer, in that it's kind of the same size and built in a very similar way. We're going to build it over here. It's also a 3x3. And again, if we hit stop, the front is going to be this bit here with the orange output. So again, we'll hit play and pause. And at the bottom, you'll see the similarities here. We need a light engineering block in the back left corner. We then have steel scaffolding going around like this with the fluid pipes in the middle, here and here, like that. Next level up is the same, but instead of barrels here, we have cauldrons. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 cauldrons like that. Again, with another light engineering block and the heavy engineering block. And then finally, at the top, we just have 4 sheet metal as opposed to the piston and the steel fence. Again, you do have to right click right here, but that builds the fermenter. And then we can grab another one of our energy exporters to begin to export energy to, again, the same kind of top slot on that fermenter, that being this one right here. This time around, of course, we are going to use a buyer to auto buy the potatoes from the store. I'll buy 64 for now, though. And then those are going to get pumped in to the input slot. So right here, like so. And then as soon as this is hooked up with power, that should begin to produce ethanol. And then from there, we just need to take that ethanol and pump it around into our first refinery. That's going to take the ethanol. We're going to combine that up in the first refinery with the silver plate. Right now, we don't have a silver plate, but of course, we can go ahead and get one. I'm assuming just using our depot here. We totally can. And again, I was told that we don't need to continually make these. I think it's just, yeah, you can see a catalyst. It's not a consumed item, which is very handy. Let me also quickly make sure that I do this so that this actually does get power just as soon as we connect it up, like so. Perfect. So that should now be good to go, and it should be beginning, look at that, to produce ethanol. Nice. And so from there, we can then just use a fluid pipe to run that ethanol over into our refinery. That's going to start making the acetaldehyde right here. We're then going to pump that over into our second refinery so that we can make the Duraplast. We also, of course, need the creosote here. So what we can do here, somewhat awkwardly, I guess, is, and we could probably make it look nicer if we used the fluid exporters, because it doesn't extract from here. Both of these are inputs, like this one here is an input, and then this is just the input for the other side. So we need to input the acetaldehyde that we have right here into the left slot, or into one of the slots, I don't think it matters which. And then over here, we need to input the creosote. So I think what we could do, if we wanted it to look horrible, is we could do this, set this to extract, make sure that this here is disconnected like that, and then put the pipe down there and then just run it around. That would work, but I think it's going to look a little bit haphazard. And so instead, what I think we should do, especially given that we already have to do it for the creosote, because our creosote is already connected via the fluid interface, we should go ahead and make another batch of fluid interfaces. And then, of course, we'll turn those into fluid exporters, at least 2 of them. And then what we'll do is we'll just throw down a fluid exporter here. We'll throw down a fluid exporter here. We can create 2 cards, one for creosote and one for the new acetaldehyde that's going to export to both of those. And of course, we do still need more facades. We'll get those going at the end once all of our machines are down. Boom and boom. Those are going to be easy to hook up. And then over here, I think we can just put a fluid interface directly onto this. Worst case scenario, we could put a tank down and put the interface onto that tank, because I'm fairly certain this will auto eject. But you'll see at the top there, it shows the liquid. And so I'm fairly certain that we can just do this, and that's going to have access to what we need. So let me quickly grab a bucket here. I am fairly certain that, if I'm not mistaken, we should be able to get a bucket of this by just right-clicking. We can. I'm also fairly certain that in here, if I click fluid storage and I click on the creosote, can I get a bucket of creosote? Like if I do this, that doesn't work. I was really hoping there was a way for me to like take a bucket. Oh, it did work. I don't know what I clicked there. I don't know if I left-clicked or right-clicked, but some form of clicking did give me a bucket of creosote. And so now we should be able to go back to our variable card here. Of course, you can also probably just drag these from JEI as well, but let's do fluid, creosote, create, and let's do fluid, create. Cool. So over here, we are going to go ahead and export the creosote Again, I don't think it matters which side you export to. Over here, we're going to go ahead and export the acetaldehyde, like so. And then let's just quickly connect these up on the bottom. So I want you connected up here, and I want you connected up here. And that should start exporting both of those over into here. And look at that, we have the phenolic resin being made. This totally works, which you'll love to see, and this is being made. Fantastic. So now we need to take that and we need to make a bottling plant. So the bottling plant thankfully doesn't look too difficult. We do need a pump from Immersive Engineering. That's this one right here. Again, we need to go back to the item crafting page to make that happen. But this is just some pipes, some mechanical components, and some iron plates, all fairly easy stuff. Let me check with the engineer's manual here. If I want to make the bottling machine, what are we missing? We're missing 2 sheet metal, 3 steel scaffolding, and 3 conveyor belts. Once we've got all the ingredients, again, let's go pause. I think I want it facing this way. This one doesn't matter too much because it's kind of like the metal press in that it's got a conveyor belt on the front that items move along, so it's going to go from left to right. I think I'm going to put it right here though. So let's unpause and pause. And then we want to have all of these items down. So we've got 3 steel scaffolding that's going down kind of like this. We then have the redstone engineering block at the front. We have a light engineering block at the back right and a sheet metal right here. I think the next sheet metal just goes directly on top of the first one. It totally does. Same with the engineering block, also usually a fairly safe bet. The fluid pump is going to go here, and then our conveyor belts are going along the front here, here, and here. And then if you right click on the pump, nope, on the conveyor belt, yeah, the front center conveyor belt, we get a bottling machine. Nice. Here, we're going to once again convert our fluid interface into another fluid exporter. The fluid here, I believe, is exported to the back, so I think it goes in right there. We'll connect that up in just a second with our phenolic resin. We then do also need to put our metal press in. I actually don't know how this goes in. I think, annoyingly, I think we kind of loop this round. I'm assuming we get it back, because normally you put bottles on and the bottles move across. But I think that all we need to do here is kind of drop this on, and I think that that will kind of loop around. Let me get a hopper. In fact, I'll temporarily steal this one. If I do, let's say, this and this, I think that's going to work once we get the right fluid in. And of course, just like with every other machine, we also need an energy exporter on the power tap right here to allow us to export power. And of course, as per usual, we need to put a variable card in there to export the energy. Cool. So let me go ahead and run this down around. Let's also connect that up along the bottom like so. It's so nice having one cable that can carry everything. And then over here, let's also go ahead and get our first bucket of phenolic resin. Although actually, let's see if we can't make a variable card by dragging it. So we need phenolic resin, this stuff right here. Can I drag that like this? I totally can. Cool. I'm hoping that works. So now over here, if I say export that, that of course isn't going to work just yet because we need to first get another fluid interface and whack it on the front there. So if I take another one of these, which is easier said than done because right now all of our buckets are... If we make an extra bucket, it immediately gets used up and sent around over there to make buckets of lava, which is why we never have any buckets, because they're always getting used. But I'm hopeful that back over here, if I do this, and if we connect that up, that this should work, and that is already connected there, you'll have to see it. So now that does have the phenolic resin, and you'll see this does work. It makes the Duroplast sheet, and it gives us the metal press back. And so, just like with the metal press over here, we can put down a chest like this. And I guess now we kind of just need to loop that cast because that's going to go around and it's going to make us the Duroplast sheets. We just need to then take specifically the metal press mold out of here and loop it back round to the beginning. So what I think we'll do is replace this chest immediately with a storage drawer. Again, specifically a 2x1 storage drawer here, I think is going to make the most sense because that way we can put this down like so. We can immediately lock it with our configuration tool, and then we can lock one slot to the Duroplast sheets and one slot to the metal press mold. And I think at that point, we can probably just use item pipes, especially if we get a pipe upgrade. We do need the diamond tier pipe upgrade, which is a little expensive in that it requires 4 blocks of redstone, and we don't currently have automation on the redstone, but it's not too difficult given that we can buy almost all of the ingredients required. But if we just do this and kind of run this along the top, like this, we could also, if we wanted to avoid using the pipe upgrade. The reason for this pipe upgrade, by the way, is that here we can put this in and set this to whitelist mode. By default, there is no whitelist mode in the pipe. But if you wanted to get around this without making the expensive pipe upgrade, what we could do instead is you could put a different drawer. Like the easier way of doing it, the much easier way of doing it, is kind of just get rid of this, put a drawer down here, lock that drawer to, well, lock it to nothing to begin with, and then take this, lock that there, and then now this will work even without that pipe upgrade, because this is the only thing that can be extracted from this drawer, and so that's the only thing that makes its way around. It is a little slower, just because the pipe extracts slower without the pipe upgrade, but if we were to put the pipe upgrade in again, it should just keep working, and we can leave that there for now. That's fine. Now, we are out of phenolic resin, and we're out of this as well. That's because we don't have the auto buyer. So let's see if we have one initially. We do. Perfect. Let's take our tier 1 buyer. Let's put that down over here. You are, for now, until we get some more automation, you're going to buy potatoes for us. So let's take you. Let's shift-click that potato into here, and then from there, we just need another pipe, which we already have, actually. So let's take this. Let's do this, and this. Cool. And so that should just kind of keep going. It's definitely the more expensive route for us, but I think that everything should just work here. Chat is right. I forget every time that the hopper is also unnecessary, and they are right in that it is going to look nicer if we move this down by 1, just from like a symmetry standpoint. We can put this here, and we can then use a pusher upgrade as well. If we get a pusher upgrade, we can just push directly to the north. So if we put you in and say push north like that, again, we need to make sure this is set and locked to you. That totally works. We are out of item pipes. Thankfully, these are not too difficult now that we have a bunch of the compressed mechanisms. Let's do this and this. Cool. This also works and does look a little bit nicer, a little bit more symmetrical than what we had previously. And yeah, this is kind of just working. The phenolic resin is being made, and we're getting the Duraplast sheets. Nice. And so now it wants us to, you know, the only time I don't get a bucket of something, and the quest book immediately wants me to have a bucket of the resin. Okay, fine. Let me get one more bucket here, and let's see if I can't siphon that out. I don't think I can take it out of here, annoyingly, so I think I'm going to have to kind of temporarily disconnect this and get a bucket of phenolic resin kind of out of here. Chat is right. We can drop the bucket on the belt. That totally does work, I assume. It does. Nice. Okay, cool. And then we can just go ahead and reconnect that. We didn't need to disconnect it. That's fine. All right, so that quest is complete, and we do get some more Duraplast sheets as a reward there. I think, as with everything, I probably will throw a downgrade into this drawer, just so that we're not infinitely buying potatoes to make more of these Duraplast sheets. I think if we've got a backlog of 64, things are probably fine. And so now we just need to craft these. Of course, for now, we can do that manually. If we take some Duraplast sheets and some copper, we can head over to our engineer's workbench. That's this guy right here. And this one requires the crafting components blueprint, which we do already have, actually. Let's do this, and let's do this to take these. Cool. We can craft really as many of them as we like. So with that, we should be able to start to look at making these empty PCBs. This is again made in a pressure chamber here. We need the circuit backplate, we need the titanium plate, backplane, the titanium plate, and the electrum wire. So we are going to have to automate the electrum and the making of electrum wire. That should be fine. Electrum, I assume we're going to automate in a very similar way to how we automated Invar, because right now, of course, we still can't automate the little alloy kiln right there. So we're probably going to have to get another whisk. And much like here, we're sending iron and nickel over. For the electrum, we'd have to send over the silver and gold to make that happen. But that should be a fairly easy bit of automation. And then from there, we can actually start making PCBs. The tricky part about bringing all of this together is going to be kind of automating all of the different pressure chambers that we're going to have to automate to make this work. Because, of course, we still need one pressure chamber to make the empty PCBs, like we're going to do right here. And then we also, on top of that, need to get pressure chambers for the different capacitors and transistors that we're going to need as well to automate the production of those electric components as well. But I think next time we'll come back and we'll look at getting this Amadron tablet, we'll look at getting the UV light box, and bringing that together with etching acid, which we can make in a mixer, to make our first unassembled PCBs, but then I'm pretty sure the recipe is different once we get the assembly platform and stuff here. We can then make these faster and cheaper, as it says in the quest book. And yeah, we can look at kind of bringing all of this together and hopefully fully automating the production of these PCBs, not only for the potential to sell them, because of course over here they do sell for $31,250 each, but also to allow us to progress forward and start crafting some of the higher tier stuff, which does indeed require these finished PCBs. But as always, that is going to have to be a problem for future Isaac. For now, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this episode of Forever Factory there.